Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this presentation on autism today. I feel so happy to be given the opportunity to speak to everyone today. Now, I am Ilana, and I have 3 boys. My oldest son is now 20 years old, and his name is David. And when he was a baby, he was 18 months, I realized that he was not developing on time, and he also lost certain skills he could do. He used to play peekaboo and he used to say certain words, and then I realized he's not doing this anymore. And we took him to the doctor and he was diagnosed with autism. When I heard that word autism, I was so scared. I think as a mother, when you hear that word, you get a really big shock because this is your child and you want your child to have a good future and you want your child to have all the opportunities in the world. And now somebody says the child has autism. And in the beginning, it's very difficult to understand, what does autism really mean? When the doctor told me my son has autism, I went home and I cried and I cried and I cried. You guys know there's the Indian Ocean there in Natal. The ocean is there because all the water in the ocean is my tears. That's how much I cried. And when the doctor told me that my son has autism, I was also pregnant. I had just found out I was pregnant with a second child. Now, I was very scared about, was the second child going to be okay? And really nobody could tell me. I was crying every day and it was very difficult to do my work and just to be there for my family because my heart was very, very sore. I remember praying to God and crying, and I think in the beginning, we always want to know, why me, you know? If we go to the shops and we see the other children and it just looks so easy for the other parents, we always ask, why is this happening to me? And when my son was diagnosed with autism, I also asked, why is this happening to me? So what dried my tears? And what made me feel better and helped me not to be so scared was to educate myself. The more information I could read about autism and the more ways I had to help my son, the better I felt, because I started to realize, but hold on a second, I understand he has autism, but actually there's so much hope. This does not need to be the end of the road. And you guys know, every child on the spectrum is actually an individual. So no one child presents exactly the same. Some children, they can struggle to talk. Others, they can talk, but they can have other learning challenges. But what I want to tell you guys today is that no matter where your child is on the spectrum, it does not mean that there's going to be no future for them, okay? All this means is that you must just be strong. You must be courageous. You must hold on to your faith. And you must believe that God is watching over you and that your child is going to learn the skills that they need to function and they can still have a good life. Okay. So what did I learn and what do I want to share with everybody today? So firstly, what we feed our children is very, very important, because sometimes the children who are not talking or they're hyperactive and they can't sit still, sometimes there's certain foods that they can't eat, is difficult to eat. Now, it's already expensive to feed the family. And so you guys don't need to spend big money on their food. And we know that sometimes the children with autism, they can be very picky eaters. You know, it's difficult to feed them. So always what I say to parents is just try and make a pot of soup. Chicken soup or lentil soup or bone broth soup. It's very, very important to give the children a liquid nutrition. So you guys could make a big pot of, let's say, chicken soup or lentil soup. You want protein in the soup. And then you could freeze the soup in small containers. You put in the fridge or in the deep freeze. And then every morning, instead of putting milk on the pup or something else, or unkomasi on the pup, maybe you can put the chicken soup or the bone broth soup or the lentil soup onto the pup. And if you can make rice some days, that's going to be better. So if we just give pup every day, sometimes it's not so good for the kids to get the same thing every day. I know that it's difficult to feed them, so don't worry too much. But if you can do one day pup, one day rice, that is also good, But the liquid nutrition, the soup, is very good for the kids, because when the child has autism, there is a problem with the stomach. So if we can fix the tummy, we're going to help the brain to function better. So just focusing on liquid nutrition is good, like the soups, and trying to see if you can get them to have soup for breakfast. Sometimes the parents are giving Cocoa Pops, or they're giving Wheat Bix or cornflakes. That's not so good, because it's got lots of sugar and it's got lots of processed things with the cereal. So only if it's possible, to make a good soup. You can make soup once in the month. You can just use a little bit of soup on the pup or a little bit of soup on the rice. That's going to be very good for your child, for their nutrition, because in order for their brain to function properly, we have to help their tummies. Then when you guys go to the clinic next to take your child for a checkup, then ask the doctor there, you want to put your child onto a multivitamin. That is always good for a child on the spectrum. So when you go next to the clinic, see if you can get from the doctor a good multivitamin for the child. Sometimes money is difficult and it's not always possible to give the child the multivitamin every day. That's okay. If you can only manage once a week or twice a week, that's also going to help your child. So speak to the doctor next time you go to the clinic and just say to the doctor, what multivitamin can I give to my child? Now, often when the children with autism behave, it's very difficult for the parents, because if we go to Checkers or we go to Pick and Pay, then the child is crying, they're having a meltdown, they're tantruming, and everybody is watching us. And our heart gets very sore, because we think, what is the people thinking, because the child is screaming. And so I'm going to tell you guys what I did at the shops. If the people looked at me, then I just stayed back at them. Like, I looked at them and looked at them, and then eventually they would look away. And then I keep on looking at them, and then I see they quickly look to see if I'm still looking, and I'm still looking at them. Because, it's not your fault that your child is having this tantrum. If a child is struggling to speak and struggling to communicate, then they're going to have behavior. So just remember, guys, when you think your children are being naughty, you must tell your family as well, they're not being naughty. If you can't talk, or you can talk a little bit, but not the same as another child of that age, you're going to use your behavior to communicate. Now, I really recommend that you bring your children for the speech therapy. It's very important, because they're going to help you to help your children to improve their communication, okay? And you guys mustn't get despondent when the children are having these bad behavior in public. You must just explain to the people, excuse me, Sissy, my child has autism, okay? He struggles, he's struggling to talk, he struggles to understand. Please just be nice. I promise you, people understand immediately when you say, look, there's something wrong with the child. They actually will apologize to you. They'll say, sorry, me, sorry. So don't be scared. I'll tell you guys a funny story. When I used to go to Pick and Pay, I used to go stand in the queue for the old people because I knew my son didn't have patience to stand in the queue. And then the old ladies, they used to tap on my shoulder and they used to say, hey, why are you standing in this queue? This is not for you. And then I used to say to the old lady, listen, my son has autism. In 5 minutes, he's going to run out of patience. He's going to scream. You're going to see why I'm standing in this queue. And she wasn't listening to me. She was just screaming at me. Why are you standing in this queue? This queue is for old people. 2 minutes later, my son was actually 14 years old at the time, and he had a tantrum. He was screaming. Everybody was turning around, looking at us. And then the old lady could see, why was I standing in this queue? So you know what? You guys are all doing a wonderful job raising these kids on the spectrum. It is difficult because it's difficult to raise normal children. Now you have a child with special needs. And you worry and you know what's going to happen. But I've got good news for you today, because you know my son was diagnosed when he was 18. His name is David. Today he's 20. And really, he is the worst case scenario autism. Life is difficult for him, but we never give up on him and we work with him. And today he's working in a kitchen. He can peel the vegetables, he can chop the vegetables, he can follow a recipe, he is making soups and biscuits and pizza, and then we take the food that he makes and we take it to the orphanage, to the children that don't have parents. Then he feeds those children. So he also has a purpose in the world. My son David, who's 20, he has learned to dress himself and to feed himself. Your children will learn to do these things. So you must not give up hope. There is so much hope, and there are things now that we can do to help the kids, you know. So don't think, oh, I don't have money, there's nothing that I can do. What I like to tell parents is that we really learn from other parents. You know, and sometimes it doesn't need a lot of money to do things to help the kids. So please, everybody, join our Facebook group. It's called Autism Now What? They're going to give you the link, or you can go to Instagram, autism_now_what. There's lots of parents on these groups, and then the one parent will say, my child is not sleeping. If your child is not sleeping, you must take them to the clinic. You must ask the doctor, what can I do to help my child to sleep? Because if the child's not sleeping, then you also not sleeping. If the child is not eating nicely, you must also take to the clinic to say to the doctor, look, you are struggling. They will give you something. And so, you know, just join our Facebook group. And from there, you can learn a lot of good advice. But I want to tell you something. There are so many children that have this diagnosis of autism. The doctors are saying now it is because there's so many toxic things in the environment. The air we breathe, the food we eat, the water we drink, all these things are not always clean or good, and it's affecting children who are sensitive. These children that get affected with autism, they're just more sensitive. You know, I had a very close friend and her son was diagnosed with autism, and she thought the child was bewitched. And you know what? Then she realized, no, it's not like that. It is a physical thing. But the thing is, there are many things that you can do to help your child. So I hope that my story gives you hope today, because my son is the worst case scenario. He's 20, he has autism, but in the morning he gets dressed, he eats, he feeds himself, he can bath himself, he brushes his teeth, and he works in the kitchen with the chef, and he's cooking the food. And the children that he gives the food to, they're so happy when they get the food from my son. So what I will tell you guys is, yes, there are things we must do for the kids, like try to get the right education for them and go to see the doctor to try to help them. But then we must never forget that we need to always pray, because God is watching over you and God knows that you have this child and he's going to help you. So when you think, I don't know what I'm going to do with this child, what's going to happen? Dry your tears, because God is there. Just say to God, you know, I'm very scared and I don't know how to help this child. Please help me. Please tell me what to do. And I know God will light your way and God will show you what to do. So everybody, my name is Ilana Gershlovitz. I wrote a book. It's called Saving My Sons, A Journey with Autism. And I just want to tell you that don't think that, oh, it's just you have a problem. So many people have problems, guys. You know, the one family, they've lost the father. The other family, maybe the child has got cancer. The other family, the child can't see nicely. The other family, oh, there's a different problem. We all have problems. And the problems that we are given are just a test of faith. God is testing you. He wants to know if you're going to stay strong. He wants to know if you're going to keep praying. So stay strong, be courageous, and just remember, you're not alone. Thanks, everyone.